Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Oh, it's that time. It's time for another episode.
So it's as of time of recording, it's Friday, August 5th. It's about 5:50, I'm just getting home from work. But the reason I'm saying this is because after we record, I have a hard decision ahead of me, okay? Because there's been a couple of really good horror movies that just released digitally. So last night on Shudder, a movie came out called What Josiah Saw, and don't really know much about it. Be going into it blind, but I've read a bunch of good things about it. Also today, on Peacock, there's a movie that came out called They Them, and it's about a group of LGBTQ kids at like a conversion camp, and there's like a killer. Kevin Bacon's in it, and then also on Hulu is Prey, the next entry.
Yeah, dude.
In the Predator franchise, but also Bodies came out in theaters today. So there's a bunch of good horror to watch this weekend. That's basically what I'm getting at.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I really just genuinely can't wait to watch Prey. I've heard it's like a really good Predator movie. Like you said, it just dropped today, but some of the earlier reviews were praising it. I think it has it's in the 90%.
Damn.
On Rotten Tomatoes. It's which is uncanny for a Predator movie, you know what I mean? But I fucking love Predator movies. Yeah. So you're right. It's pretty fucking well, and there's just more down the pipeline that's going to be coming out.
Oh yeah.
As the year keeps going on, it's shaping up to be a good year for horror movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's just a couple of movies that are coming out soon: Barbarian, Smile, Don't Worry, Darling, and Halloween Ends. So yeah, there is some good shit coming. So
fuck yeah, dude, I cannot wait. But
that's not what we're talking about today.
Yeah, we got the final roundup episode of the 1990s
horror
movies. And this definitely is the juiciest of the years, you know what I mean?
Without question. They're even to the point where normally we each pick 5 movies. We decided to bump it up just a little, and we each picked 6, you know what I mean? But yeah, there's just so much good shit. It's and it really, is the first movie where we couldn't do this without talking about Scream, and it's the fact, it wasn't like Scream came out January 1st, 96 or anything like that. Yeah. But it really, it's just from there, with man, you know what I mean? It's just it revitalized the horror genre, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it really, without Scream, I feel like there wouldn't be some of the other solid shit that came out, The Faculty, or I Know What You Did Last Summer, you know what I mean? So it really... Yeah. But speaking of Scream, it's one of 3 movies that we're going to be talking about today that's written by Kevin Williamson. And he really just had a hell of a time. Not a hell of a time. I meant to say he had a hell of a career peak, in the late 90s. He wrote the script for I Know What You Did Last Summer first. But obviously Scream is the one where it was damn, you know what I mean? Because the wild, what were you going to say?
It's just Scream's just such a unique fucking premise, for a horror movie,
Absolutely.
And it definitely it's what's so fucking cool about it is it does what every horror fan kind of quasi wants. You want something where it's it feels like it could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And where it's this, it's you're playing by horror movie rules, and this killer's fucking taking people out, and you feel like Jamie Kennedy the entire time, where you're like, I know the rules, man, I'll make it.
Yeah, but the movie obviously plays off the cliches and it's like a satire of those things. But this movie, man, just from the intro where we talk about how it's rules, but it totally fucking pisses in the face of the rules, killing. You know what I mean? Drew Barry. In my opinion, it created its own phrase. The Drew Barrymore, where you're like, holy fuck, did that actually happen?
It's the truth, man. Even still, watching it, you're just you, even though that Barrymore gets the Barrymore treatment, you're just blown away almost. It's I can't believe they got away with that.
Yeah. In my opinion, this is one of those rare, perfect horror movies. Just everything about it, from the like I said, from that shocking beginning, to the infamous party scene, and then obviously to one of the most shocking killer reveals, with not one but two killers, and straight through to the ending. It's just a movie that from the start just fucking takes you up the roller coaster and the whole entire time. You know what I mean? There's rarely any points in the movie where you're left to catch your breath, and when it does happen, it's specifically done for that reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's they know you need a second as a viewer or something. It really does. It just kicks off the ride right out the gate, and you're just fucking wrapped up in it immediately. And
do you know that this is?
Yeah.
What were you gonna say? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's really uncanny for movies to do that for me, at least, and like I said, Scream, every single time I watch it, I still get wrapped up into it,
Absolutely. Did you know that this was the until Halloween 2018, this was the highest grossing slasher movie?
Oh, whoa, no, I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense. This movie was it was wildly popular because of things like the opening sequence where people just walked out of the theater and were like, what the fuck just happened? And that spread. I feel it just everybody was like, whoa, dude, I gotta check this out now. I don't know, man. Scream became a fucking cultural phenomenon,
oh my,
to the likes of which,
yeah,
to the things we haven't seen since the introduction of Michael Myers and Freddy.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I mean, fuck, dude, how many years in a row was the ghost face mask just the most popular fucking Halloween costume?
Absolutely.
And I mean, further, I feel Scary Movie eventually helped even revitalize interest in it, because they did such a fun job with certain elements of Scream.
That's why I always thought it was interesting that the working title for Scream was Scary Movie. You know what I mean? But another wild thing about Scream is that, Wes Craven's career, he'd been around forever. And he was kind of reaching that point where, maybe, it was time to, in some people's eyes, I'm not saying this is everyone's opinion, but in some people's eyes, it was maybe, it's time to hang up the boots. But then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just wild that this late into his career, he was able to make another seminal horror movie. You know what I mean? That's still, like you said, to this day, is still analyzed and still regarded as one of, if not the greatest horror movie ever made. So
yeah, it's fucking true. And and that you're right. Like that is a real big testament to his like, creativity and what Wes Craven was really like bringing to the genre. Like we've talked about it before on past podcasts where, like there's definitely like those definitive movies and careers like Carpenter's where it's like he hit a point where it's just like, dude, this is just not as good. I mean, it still like has merit, but like there's just like, it might be better to just call it before you ruin your name.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Not that Carpenter I think can ever ruin his name and because of his work, but
no, but he did. Yeah, there's a period like Escape from L.A. and movies and like Big Trouble in Little China. Movies that are like cult classics, but they're not necessarily good movies. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like this is definitely like it has its cult following. Scream has its cult following, but it earned it right out of the gate. Like,
oh fuck!
As soon as it dropped, like it was fucking shocking people, and like, like we were saying, like the word spread, and like next thing you know, like it's everywhere.
Did you know too that after this movie was released, that and here's a word you don't really hear too often, but caller ID increased more than threefold after this movie was released.
Damn, dude. I mean, do you blame people like after watching this, like being like, I don't want to get that fucking phone call? What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah, it's just and not only that, but like you said, like the cult following, like there's just such a diehard fan base to this movie, and the fact that Scream 5 just came out, and it's probably in most people's eyes the best sequel since the original. But just the fact that it's still a franchise that's still going strong. We're next year hopefully the next installment comes out, and it just it's one of those things too where Courtney Cox, for example, had some notoriety from Friends, but this movie helped push her into the stratosphere. And
well, yeah, like like one that's one of the other things was I feel like this movie included actors like Drew Barrymore and Courtney Cox to a bigger extent, who like Gale Storm is a fucking great character. Like
Gale Weathers, you mean?
Gale Weathers, sorry, Storm.
Gale Hailstorm.
Yeah. But like she's a fantastic character, man, and so it took like actors like that, and it showcased them in a different like light than people really like thought of them as. I think
very true.
Even David Arquette. David Arquette had some.
Oh man.
I love Dave.
Dewey's my favorite.
Dewey's
for sure.
just R.I.P. Dewey.
Yeah.
But yeah, like like it created these characters that you root for all the way through Scream 5, man, and you're invested in them. You know what I mean? Like
that's very true.
And I don't feel like a lot of times. I feel like the longer franchises go on, they lose sight of some of that. And
true.
I think that this franchise really does a great job of like playing on that the fan love. You know what I mean? But yeah, this movie's just like, it will always be in my rotation every single year. This has to be played in October. It's just one of those, you can't, once you fall in love with it, you can't let it go.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very true.
But like Scream, like you said, I think Scream really helped push a lot of what was happening in these like latter 3 years of the 90s in terms of horror. At least it kind of like perfected what was also what was kind of going on around it at times, and I think like it kind of built this I don't know, like, because like the one of the things I was noticing when we were digging through movies was a lot of the movies that I really like have to do with sort of like I don't know, like either like high school or teen or a college,
Right.
you know, and sometimes that was like a sort of boring trope after like you know, in the past it got kind of beat to death, but it just sort of
That's
like
true.
helped like I don't know, like we keep saying it, but it helped revitalize that in a lot.
Well, because
you know?
a lot of those movies were, you know, showcasing young, attractive, you know, especially in the case of Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, you know. So I don't know. It is interesting though, because you know, Scream obviously by no means was the first horror movie to center around kids of that age. You know, it's been happening forever with Black Christmas and House on Sorority Row and April Fool's Day. You name it. But it's a good point.
Yeah, I just, you know, I don't know. I can never speak enough about just how much love I have for Scream and the subsequent movies.
Oh yeah, forever and a day.
Oh yeah, but you know, another movie from 1996 that we you know, when going through these years, I feel like we have to mention is The Craft.
Yeah.
You know,
and before you jump into what you're going to say, it's another movie that's, you know, centered around a group of high schoolers, and it also has Neve Campbell and Skeet Ulrich in it, which is interesting. But
yeah, well, I feel like Campbell, you know, went from this role, and then, you know, it was probably like a huge opening, you know, that it made, and
yeah, because she,
like, yeah,
because she's more of like a supporting role, essentially, in this movie. Definitely. But what is it about The Craft that you like so much?
Man, well, I think like a lot, like, you know, there's various things. I get it's, you know, there's the whole idea of like getting back at your fucking bullies, you know, getting back at like the people who treat you wrong, and
totally.
And, you know, you follow these four like young teen, you know, these 14 women who just like, not 14, but these 14 women who are just like, you know, they decide to invest in their own interests, really, and dig into witchcraft, and that leads them to feeling empowered and like feeling like they can, you know, take on their fucking problems. I mean, it goes a little off the wires, but
right, because at the beginning it's like, you know, we you know, one of the characters, Sarah, moves to a new town. She you know, gets kind of essentially this football player, you know, is a pig.
He basically like says that they fucked, and then like that she's like a awful fucking person in the sack or something like that, you know, like, and spreads that rumor around. So
yeah, because she falls in with the group that wants her to be the fourth member of their coven, and like you said, so there's Bonnie, Neve Campbell's character, who is covered in burns, and so her initial wish is to be more attractive. There's Nancy, which is one of my favorite roles by Fairuza Balk, who, you know, she lives in a trailer. Her stepdad's abusive. And there's Rochelle, who is black and is getting bullied by a super awful, racist, popular girl. So, you know, they all have these wishes where, you know, maybe they're not necessarily super huge in the sense of trying to abuse power, but with the outcome, you know, they are abusing that power. But I think one of my favorite parts about this movie is just, you know, not only is there not enough good witch horror, but the fact that they decided to center it towards the high school, where when I watch it, I think about, you know, what would I do in this situation if I was, you know, in high school, where, like you said, there's bullying, maybe you want to be better looking, or your family's not as well off. Like, what if you were in that situation and you had the power to change that situation? You know what I mean? What would you do ultimately?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think that's one of the brilliant things of this, sort of makes you as a viewer ask yourself, like, because I feel like a lot of people have stories of them being picked on or bullied to some degree, or for something that they might not be able to help, and you're just like, it makes you feel trapped to be like stuck with those kind of things, and so like, yeah, to be able to like find an outlet to better yourself or attempt to better yourself, and then to get ahead of some of these people that have been dragging you down. Like, wouldn't you take the opportunity? I mean,
without a doubt.
Yeah, and that's one of the brilliant things about this movie. Just
True.
like, and I think you're 100% right there. Especially at this point in time, there wasn't really a lot of good like witchcraft movies.
True. Another favorite thing about this movie is it's set in LA, but it's got a very like dark feel to it. Obviously, with witchcraft and dark arts, but it's just a really captivating movie to watch. With the director Andrew Fleming really hasn't done much, and up to this point hadn't done much, but directs the movie in a way that if you didn't know that, you know what I mean, you would think it's someone that had quite a few films under their belt. It's just a really pretty movie to look at. There's some standout scenes like the light as a feather, stiff as a board scene.
Yeah.
The whole last like 20 minutes with the witch showdown. There's just some great scenes that still have stuck with me to this day.
Hell yeah.
And I think it's a movie that really could have been hit or miss, but it hit. And it's they recently did like a reboot esque like a remake, and this is another movie that it didn't spawn any sequels, but it does have its own cult following to an extent, and I think it is deservedly so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely has a huge like cult following now, and yeah, I didn't actually ever catch that like the kind of quasi remake, but because to be honest, like I just didn't find it necessary. I was like, this movie's still fucking perfect for for what it is. Like,
I agree,
but I mean that does say something to the point of like they studios notice like when there's like that cult fan base that gets built, and it's like, though I do think like things like this don't need remakes, it is kind of interesting that it's like, wow, people weren't this popular enough that it's like, well, how can we continue to capture that audience,
but it's true. One of the good things about the movie too is that we talked about what would you do in that situation if you had and all of these wishes, it's kind of like the cheesy saying, like, be careful what you wish for, because totally. Bonnie ends up going from this kind of modest humble person to this really vain character. Nancy, her stepdad ends up dying. They catch her and her mom move into a high rise. And throughout the movie, her attitude changes. The love spell backfires on Sarah. So it's like it's one of those things where it just reminds you that there's consequences to your actions. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's definitely not like these characters are just getting away with it all. Like, it comes back around, and that is also one of those very human, compelling things that captures you, because like I feel like we've all had those moments too, where it's like, damn, dude, I didn't realize I was going to come back to bite me or something, you know, like.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's I like that, rather than it's just like, oh, here's these girls that are doing these things, and there's no consequences. Like, I think it was really cool that it showed, you know, regardless if it's a realistic situation or not, that, you know, everything you do in life, you know, for every, as the saying goes, for every action there's an equal
reaction.
Yeah.
It's true though. It's and I mean, that is, I think, one of the things that makes this movie, it shows you that balance in action, you know, and that's really, really fucking cool, because so many movies you know, you end up rooting for. I mean, sometimes you root for the bad guy just because you want, you know, you're like, oh my god, they're gonna get away with it. Sometimes you root for the good guy. This you feel for these characters, and then you see them get, like, you know, a little bit of their dream come true, and then you know, it being, you know, twisted. You know, like I said, it's just like a very human thing, I feel like, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons it continues to connect with people after years and years, you know.
Yeah, I agree. So, you know, just jumping into some shout outs. So
yeah, I was gonna say, there's a shout outs in every year, man. Oh man.
1996 is not without its extensive list of sequels. So we have the 8th entry in the Amityville series, Dollhouse, which actually put. Yeah.
I was gonna say, we should probably watch that one. I almost guarantee you it isn't the best movie in the Amityville series.
I completely agree. But we also had Carnosaur 3, Primal Species. Children of the Corn 4, The Gathering. Hellraiser 4, Bloodline. Tremors 2. And another 8th entry in a long-running series, and I've never seen any of them, but we had Witchcraft 8, Salem's Ghost.
Yeah,
like, how many of those? Jesus Christ!
Like, I've been seeing the witchcraft movies pop up almost every year, or every block of years that we've covered for the 90s, and I keep wondering, I'm like, what the fuck is up with these witchcraft movies?
There's even a 9th one comes out in 97. It's like, holy shit, dude!
It's nuts.
Like, and what is it? Yeah.
We also, I mean, there's like plenty, you know, like we've talked about a couple movies that you gotta mention. You know, The Dentist was a 1996 movie. Yeah, dude.
Oh my god, one of the best.
Pinocchio's Revenge came out in 96. My god.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we talked about that one, you know, pretty recently, episode 50. So
yeah. And then there's like, you know, a couple, I believe Stephen King related works, or maybe just one there, but you know, there's Thinner, which is like a really interesting fucking cool movie.
Dude, it's super solid.
Yeah. And then there's an awesome werewolf movie that came out in 96 called Bad Moon. It was another one I was kind of toying with talking about, but then I was like, it's a good shout out.
I still need to see that. That's like, yeah, I still need to see Bad Moon.
It's probably one of the better werewolf movies from the 90s, I'd say, in my opinion. Okay. It's on Shudder right now too, so.
Oh, is it?
It's available.
I did not know that.
And then we also have, like, it's kind of it's almost like a horror comedy from Peter Jackson, The Frighteners, with Michael J. Fox. Yeah. So it's just, to me, that's just a really fun movie, you know.
I agree.
It like walks that line with kind of like a scarier Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and you know, and it's I feel like it's more of a tame Peter Jackson movie, you know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we also had Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood, which, you know, is solid as well. It's just a good, you know, guilty pleasure flick. You know, you're not going in expecting Silence of the Lambs, but it's it's entertaining.
Yeah, exactly.
We also had a movie I watched recently, a full moon feature called Head of the Family, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous.
Okay.
And you should go watch it.
Head of the Family.
But yeah, so to kind of, do you have any more shout outs for 96 before, I
honestly
jump into...
that kind of covers it for what I wanted to like mention, because I mean, again, there's just so many, and yeah, I mean, I know there's at least one more movie though that we have to talk about.
Yeah, it's the first of two movies that we're going to talk about that's directed by Robert Rodriguez, and it's also written and stars Quentin Tarantino, but it's one of those movies that is super near and dear to my heart because I think I've mentioned before how in Missouri I had these friends. They were two brothers and they were older than me, and they introduced me to a bunch of shit. I remember I vividly remember it was like a Friday night and we watched From Dusk Till Dawn. They introduced me to it and I was just blown away, and we ended up watching it like 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just from and Robert Rodriguez, I didn't know at the time like who he was, that I was young. I wasn't really worried about directors or writers, but Robert Rodriguez has made a lot of awesome fucking movies. Another one which we're going to talk about when we get to 98. But it's Rodriguez and Tarantino obviously have a really close relationship. They did Grindhouse together. But just even like before we even jump into the movie, just the cast, it's got Harvey Keitel, who is kind of like a Tarantino mainstay, George Clooney, Juliette Lewis, Salma Hayek, who's a Robert Rodriguez mainstay, Cheech Marin, Denny Trejo, and even Tom Savini, who plays one of the most badass, memorable roles with the dick gun, sex machine. And that's what I mean. This movie is just so fucking creative because, if in anyone else's hands, a movie about two criminals on the run who kidnap a family and wind up at a vampire's den, in anyone else's hands, it could have just been this super generic, boring movie. But this is one of the most creative, inventive movies that you're gonna watch.
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely it gives you a spin on vampires alone that you're just like you don't get to see them enough like you do in this movie, and you don't it's just this movie's so rough around the edges that I don't know, there's just something about it that you just keep wanting to watch. Something kind of fucked up happens and you're like, okay, well, how are they gonna get more fucked up than that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's kind of it, man. It's such a fucking fun, dark movie,
Yeah, and on top of the amazing gore, and one of the things about this movie is that Tarantino wanted to showcase K&B effects. Robert Kurtzman, Greg Nicotero, they're the ones that did all the effects in this movie. So it's another thing when you get older and you realize who worked on it, you're like, oh, that's a no-brainer. Only is there the extreme gore, but there's all these different types of vampires. There's the rat creature, there's Santanico, but there's also a lot of really good humor interspersed in the scene where there's the band playing instruments, and then when they turn into vampires, they're playing human bodies.
Yeah.
Just Cheech Marin's role. They got wet pussy, hairy pussy. You know what I mean? It's just, oh my god, dude. I'm just such a mark for this movie. I love everything about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is turned into such a timeless fucking movie where it's so enjoyable now, just as much as it was the first time you fucking watch it.
Oh my god.
And oh man, and you can't speak enough about how fucking smoking hot Selma Hayek's in this movie. Mwah.
Especially as 10, 11-year-old kid, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah, ba boom. But yeah,
like
I mean, it's such a cool, like I said earlier, it's such a cool take on vampires, man. Like, you know, just like this fucking vampire bar in the out there in the fucking desert sticks, and like and I don't know, man. Like
it's cool too, because there's the scene later in the movie where they go into the storeroom. They fill up the squirt guns with holy water. They make a pneumatic drill, and you just see that like all this different shit from all these trucks. You're like, how long has this been going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even furthermore, this movie has one of my favorite fucking like ending shots. Whereas the end credits are about to roll, it does this like panning shot of the back of the titty twister, and it's on top of like a ancient Aztec ruin.
Yeah, dude. What the fuck?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it spawned. It has an official sequel, correct?
Two of them.
And didn't they also try to do like a limited, some sort of series?
Yeah, so a couple years ago when Robert Rodriguez started his own television channel, El Rey, they actually had some solid shit on there, and they had Lucha Underground, which is some of the best wrestling you'll ever see.
Ooh.
But he created I think there was 2 seasons of it. It was all right. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, so they can either kind of do a scene for scene, or they can do some more wild shit, and they kind of went too wild with it, and it strayed too far. But the first season was pretty solid. I just feel like we mentioned with The Craft, it was kind of one of those things where it didn't need that, because it's like we mentioned, it's one of the most inventive, creative vampire movies you'll ever see. And I don't know. It's just wild to look back. This is the first movie that Tarantino actually had a writing credit for, and just to see how far both of their careers have come. It's kind of like, it's not the first things they've done, but just like the humble beginnings. But it's also I feel like it's one of those movies where it was like a passion project too, because another super interesting thing about it is, so Tarantino was originally going to direct it, but he wanted to focus on the screenplay, so he offered Robert Kurtzman, he offered him to direct it, but he couldn't commit to it, and so Rodriguez came in. So I just feel like, regardless of whoever directed it, all these people working together, I feel like it was just such a passion project, because it is so completely different than anything that Tarantino has ever done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, and this was, I mean, but that's why Rodriguez fit so fucking perfectly to Helmet, I think, is because, I mean, El Mariachi with fucking Antonio Banderas is such a wild movie, and the pace of it's so fucking it's snappy, and that's listen, you feel some of that pace. This movie kind of lulls you into into this kind of direction where you think where it's going, and then when it goes off the rails, it goes off the fucking rails, and it's just extreme.
Absolutely.
And everything starts moving at this fast pace, and you're just left to fucking scramble along and pick up with the characters. You're just what the fuck is about to happen next?
That's a good point, because it does start out as a crime, movie, these two outlaw brothers leaving a wake of destruction leaving destruction in their wake, and then it just totally does a pivot, you know what I mean? Into a total 100% different direction. And I think we've talked about movies before, Route 666, for example, which is almost kind of the same aspect, where a detective criminal-esque movie with horror elements, and it just was so fucking awful. But the fact that both elements of this movie just blended so well.
Yeah.
There'll never be. It's one of those movies where there'll never be another one like it.
No.
And it'll, yeah.
Even if somebody tried to make something like it, it would immediately just get compared to this. You know what I mean? And this would still overshadow it.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this movie, I really wish I could see this movie in a movie theater. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the fucking dream right there. It's just witness it in the, you know, on that big ass screen in that big dark room. You know, like, I've only ever gotten a chance to like watch it at home. You know, and
that's a good point, man.
Yeah, there's some movies that just like it'd just be such a fun experience in the theater.
It'd be a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you know, I feel like this is a movie where I could like continue to talk about it for like another 20 minutes, but you know, just if anyone's listening, and for some weird, bizarre reason you've never seen From Dusk Till Dawn, do yourself a fucking favor and go watch it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, find yourself a copy and pop it in like ASAP.
So, yeah. So jumping into 97, you have 2 picks in this year, but I don't.
Yeah.
So before you jump into your first one, I just want to pop off a couple honorable mentions, and I'll do some more later. So we have a movie that, you know, we've talked about doing on this channel and you know, really haven't yet. And I think maybe it's because it's almost too ridiculous, but we have, you know, the Jack Frost.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the Michael Keaton, you know, family, not to be confused with that, but you know,
yeah.
I wonder how many times like it happened where someone went to go rent, you know, the Michael Keaton one and accidentally grabbed the fucking
the evil version.
I'll still never get over like the like snowman like sexual assault in the shower scene like that. Like how ridiculous, dude.
Just saying that out loud too. It's just like,
yeah.
Who thought that would be like a good idea?
Yeah. 97 also. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And it spawned a sequel, so I don't know what that says, but 97 also gave us a movie that I almost picked because of how utterly insane and creative it was. But Cube came out, and I feel like you know, movies that came later, like, I'm not saying they ripped it off, or I'm not saying, you know, maybe it was an inspiration, but when you watch movies like Saw, I instantly think of Cube because, you know,
100%.
Same thing. Just this group of people wake up in this gigantic fucking contraption with endless amounts of rooms and death traps and no idea how they got there. And it's so creative. It's just such a visually stunning movie. I don't think it gets enough credit, and the sequels weren't as good, but the original Cube is fucking fantastic.
I agree, dude. I mean, we talked about a little bit about it. Like I also almost picked Cube because I have this really distinct memory of when I saw it for the first time. I don't think my dad intended on showing it to us, but we stayed up and we watched it, and it just fucking scared the hell out of me. Mainly the part where like the one like there's like. I think he's like the killer, like a serial killer or whatever he is. But there's like this one character who gets like sliced up, you know, like by this like, you know, really thin glass plating or whatever it is. And it just like, I don't know. The idea of not being able to see what fucking destroys, like kills you like that, like just scared the fuck out of me, man. And like you know how it literally cubes him up and like it, you know, he just like falls apart basically.
And that was ripped off in other movies, you know. For instance, Resident Evil did a similar, you know. But but you know, it's I think you're right, like particularly when I think about Saw 2, like the first Saw movie has some originality to it. I'll give it that. But the Saw 2, I feel like they watched Cube at some point. The writers watched Cube and were like, okay,
we're gonna trap everybody in this like one specific, like you were saying, one specific place, and they're gonna have to like get through all these different like rooms and devices and stuff like that. And
okay,
you know, I mean, you know, and yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I just don't think Cube gets talked about enough.
Not at all.
I think people just like mistake it for like a bad sci-fi channel movie or something, and like think it's not what it is. But it's a pretty like you know, fits like you were saying, like it's a really gorgeous looking movie, and it has just like some really claustrophobic,
which I love,
fear that it like instills in you. Yeah, that's like some of that shit's what gets me. I get, you know, that feeling when I get trapped in small things. Like it's one of the reasons I have a really huge like hard time being on like an airplane, for instance. Like I haven't ridden on an airplane in years because it's just such an uncomfortable fucking thing.
Yeah.
But like yeah. Anyway, like
but just the fact
really nails it.
And just the fact like of, you know, there's other horror movies like where you're familiar with your surroundings, but just waking up in this place that you don't have any idea where you're at. You know, it's just such a wild notion. Oh, yeah. But it's just one of those movies that, you know, not like you said, it doesn't get enough love, but it also doesn't get enough attention. Like it's one of those movies where it doesn't get talked about enough. Not that many people have heard about it or seen it, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you know, what other? I know a couple of like random movies to shout out to, but what else you got for like some of the honorable mentions for this year?
So yeah, you know, after you do one of your movies, I'll shout out some of like the lesser tier movies from this year. But you know, some more honorable mentions. You know, Scream 2 came out, which is a pretty solid sequel. Yeah. We also have a movie that is a lot better than it has any right to be, but Anaconda.
Oh man, I was wondering if you're gonna say it. Yeah, Anaconda, the original Anaconda has some really cool shit about it, but like, yeah, I think it gets because of all the really bad sequels that came after the original one, like. It kind of ruined the image of the first movie in a lot of ways.
It's pretty solid though. You know, Ice Cube's good in it. You know, there's some cool slimy, you know, like the scene near the end where I forget the actor's name, but where he gets eaten and then regurgitated. You know, like there's some cool shit.
Yeah.
We also had Alien Resurrection, which gets a lot of hate, but it's it's kind of another one of those like movies that sequels that gets a lot of hate, but I still, you know, enjoy parts and aspects of it.
Totally.
Especially, you know, anything that Brad Dourif is in. So.
Well, and that, you know, that also, you know, I feel like. Who is it? Ron Perlman just fits perfectly in the vibe of that movie too, and it's always fun to see Ron Perlman in something. Absolutely. I mean, that movie takes like a significantly different tone than some of the other Alien movies, which is what's wild about it, you know. And I do think like me, I'm a huge fan of the Alien franchise, so absolutely. You know, I can't say like fuck any of those movies. I think that they all have some sort of merit to them. Yeah, it's just I mean, and that one's the fourth one in the series, right? Like that's because it follows Alien 3, and you know, I don't know. It's just it's just like it's one of those. It like plays almost on you switch from like the aliens being this like evil force. Like the aliens are just like, at this point you have to realize what they are. They're just the xenomorphs are just these like killing machines, and that's part of their nature. That's what they do. If they get out, they're gonna fucking kill everything. But what's terrifying about this movie is the fucking human element.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Where it's like these people are trying to like find a way to weaponize the xenomorphs. They, you know, are like they're using them as experiments. They're like experimenting on and cloning Sigourney Weaver, and you're just like, what the fuck is it?
That's like, what I mean. Like,
it's sinister, man.
There's a lot of really good ideas and aspects of this movie, but it just didn't, you know, pan out the way they wanted it to, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, though. It's the more of the human element in it, and I love shit like that in movies where you're like, who's the real villain here, you know?
Absolutely, man. Makes you think.
So, but what's your next like pick that you wanted to talk about?
Well, jumping off of Alien Resurrection, I think it's we going right into another sci-fi, like a dark sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Event Horizon, like there's some wild ass imagery in Event Horizon.
Oh
and
yeah.
It's fucking scary, man. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it right now because, to me, like one of the scary things about sci-fi movies like this is just being out there in space and the big unknown fucking shit that can happen out there in that in space. And that's like a huge part of this is like you're going and you're exploring this derelict ship and you're trying to figure out what the fuck happened, and you don't know what could be around any corner. You don't know if things can just, or things are just gonna get destroyed and you're gonna be fucking stuck. You don't know what's gonna happen, and it's just such a cool movie. Sam Neill's in it, Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh, he's
like
I love Sam Neill in
dude,
horror. Like
absolutely,
and he's just up a notch in this movie where you don't expect him to, like, some of the shit that happens, and obviously it has such an iconic line of dialogue in it too. But before you talk about it real quick, I want to shout out a couple like fun facts. So it's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who has directed a couple, he directed Mortal Kombat, Resident Evil, he did Alien vs. Predator. But this is a movie that he really wanted it to be a lot gorier and longer. He turned in his cut, and it was going to be an NC-17 film. And due to the studio, they heavily edited it and cut out a lot of the graphic violence and cut down the runtime. It was originally going to be 130 minutes.
Oh, damn.
Not only that, but another interesting thing about this is that he turned down the chance to direct Alien Resurrection and X-Men to do this movie.
Yeah, dude, I read the X-Men thing. I thought that was wild. Like, but I think that was part of it. Like, was at the time in Anderson's career, like that dude was particularly looking to do something a little more, intense, unique, and that's exactly what he delivered, even with the heavy studio cuts,
Yeah, he wanted to do something that wasn't like an established property already. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, oh man, it's just such a fucking wild movie, and like it has these elements of this like really kind of low key old Disney movie called The Black Hole, where it's like, this like, again, the whole idea of like this like derelict ship is kind of out there. You have to go, see what's going on and what's happened to the crew and anybody on the ship, and like that alone, like you placing that basic premise of like on Earth is fucking creepy, but like to have like basically a ship just sort of reappear and like it's just like out there orbiting around a fucking planet, and you're just like, okay, what the fuck?
Yeah, 7 years, disappears and just randomly pops up 7 years later. Like, what?
Yeah, there's just no, you're immediately like, there's something wrong. There's
yeah, and it's not the first movie that's had the concept. There's been movies like obviously Alien, for example, or Life Force, where it's like, we need to go find this like derelict ship. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's such a different and unique direction that they go. And it's I need to watch it. It's been so long since I've watched it, but this movie doesn't get enough. It's another movie that doesn't get mentioned enough when it comes to really creepy, unsettling sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, because like especially like near the end of the movie, it really starts ramping itself the fuck up, and that's when you start seeing some extra crazy shit. But what's there's like the whole there's like the whole scene where like the captain of the ship, you find out his like his ending, and like it's, you know, like the last thing you see of the captain of the Event Horizon is like the captain holding his fucking eyes in his own hands that he's like gouged, you know, like ripped out of his own fucking face, and you know,
saying things in Latin.
Yeah, dude, and you know, like the scary idea that like your technology basically becomes smart and like, you know, becomes like, you know, and turns against you, and you know, is like another like just supreme fucking horror moment for me. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, nowadays there's all these talks of like what a potential AI takeover could be like, and you know, and you think about movies like this, it reminds you of like those kind of things where it's like, yeah, dude, I don't know, man, I don't know, machines should have all the power.
No, never ever.
But, yeah, it's just, you know, and you get just like you know, we we're kind of mentioning, you get such fucking solid performances from most of the cast, you know, like Fishburne turns it in, fucking Neil turns it in,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, he does.
Yeah. And you know, and then you see like some random people, who's that guy? He's from Dazed. I always recognize him from Dazed and Confused. Jason Isaacs, I think is his name. That's him.
Okay.
He's, you know, he pops up in there. Oh, not I'm thinking of a different Isaacs. Jason Isaacs is the guy that played what's his fucking name? From Harry Potter. He plays Lucius Malfoy. So he kind of, and he's kind of one of those guys. He has like a really deep filmography, and so it's like when he pops up in something, even as far back as like a, you know, Event Horizon in 97, you kind of almost want to mistake him as the villain. You know what I mean? But
yeah, there's also, you know, Kathleen. I'm going to pronounce her last name probably wrong, but Punlin, who's been in her, you know, another space movie, Apollo 13, but she was in Twilight Zone the movie. You know, she plays. She's in the segment with the kid who can, you know, do things with his mind, you know, and there's also Jolie Richardson in it, who went on to, you know, gain her most notoriety when she played Sean's wife in Nip Tuck.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's why where I recognize that name. Like, yeah. I forgot. I mean, she's one of those actresses that like, she also has kind of like a pretty weird filmography if you think about it, because like there's like, you know, roles like her, you know, her character Nip Tuck, which that series gets so fucking
god, it's incredible.
Yeah. And then, you know, she also played you know, was in like 101 Dalmatians. You know, so like that's kind of something worth noting. Jolie Richardson did 101 Dalmatians in 96, and then turned around and did Event Horizon in 97. Wow. Yeah. Wild, man. Wild. Yeah.
I need to watch Event Horizon, dude. It's been like 10 years. And
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Bowie. Hi.
Bowie says hello.
God,
he's making a guest appearance on the podcast today.
Yeah. Too bad the people can't see him because he is just so adorable.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I can't speak enough to just how fucking insane this movie is. You know, I would love it if they, you know, if there was like a secret cut of this where it was like a little longer, some of the gnarlier shit,
like the director's cut.
Yeah, dude, give us the director's cut of Event Horizon, man.
That'd be dope.
What you know, like that would be pretty fucking intense, honestly. Release the Anderson cut.
I'd be down.
Yeah, for real.
So 97 also, you know, just like any year in the 90s, gave us some sequels. You know, we've got another unnecessary sequel, but American Werewolf in Paris.
Yeah, dude, that it's such a weird tie-in to American Werewolf in London. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like because they almost take like a comedy turn at times with this one, to like a detriment, if you ask me. But it's still kind of a fun movie, though. You know?
Yeah, I'm not really too familiar with it. I've seen it in passing, but it's not a movie that holds a lot of stock in my mind.
There.
Which American Werewolf in London is obviously a classic, and rightfully so. But yeah, it was just kind of a really, especially like coming out so much time after the original is weird. We also had Night of the Demons 3. Like we mentioned, Witchcraft 9. There's also apparently like a series of Hong Kong movies like that are anthologies. So in '97, Troublesome Night 1 and Troublesome Night 2 came out, and then in '98, the third and the fourth one came out. So I don't know. Apparently there's like weird.
Looking at that, it says that, for instance, Troublesome Night 2 is the second of the 20 films in the Troublesome Night film series.
Isn't that crazy?
That's wild, man.
Yeah,
like,
so
that's cool.
20? Like, holy fuck me.
Like, there's not very many series that get near that, That's fucking crazy. Another movie that we both like were kind of on the fence about, I believe, or maybe it was just me, was Spawn. Spawn came out in '97, and though I personally consider this more of a comic book movie than a horror movie.
Yeah.
It definitely has those kind of like, it has those like, it has some grody kind of grotesque parts. John Leguizamo really fucking turns it in. And you do have some like kind of light body horror, I'd say.
True.
Although I don't think it got received too well.
No,
initially.
it did not.
It definitely grew a cult following. And, to this day, Todd McFarlane himself is like on the quest to make a new Spawn movie, but he wants to helm it, which is like what's wild. It would be his first directing credit.
Yeah, he's been trying to do that for a while. I actually just read an article the other day about how, he just basically let people know that he's still working on it, but that he's not going to, he wants it to be a certain budget, and that he's not going to shy away from how he wants it to be, how violent he wants it to be, his creative vision. So it's one of those things that maybe it gets made, maybe it doesn't, but I do give him credit for sticking to his guns with the fact that, this is my baby. It's the longest running, most successful, most lucrative, independent comic of all time.
Oh yeah.
So Spawn. It's not. It took a while until comic book adaptations got a little better and were taken a little more seriously. Because it is kind of campy,
I remember when it came out. I remember reading in a Wizard magazine. Of all things, and it was talking about this movie, and even in a Wizard magazine, they mentioned there's the distinct line in the review where it's like face melting CGI.
My god!
Because there's so much CGI in this movie.
And it's not good.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. It doesn't really hold up. Like, it definitely turns it into a campy experience in 2022. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
what's your what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, one movie that like is still like, I feel like a it's turned itself into a classic, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
We've mentioned The Craft, we've mentioned Scream, you even mentioned that this script seemed to be in the works before Scream. But I really doubt that I Know What You Did Last Summer would have gotten made in '97 if it hadn't been for Scream.
I'll agree with that.
Like, though it is like a different movie, it's
very true.
It's just another kind of like teen-centered slasher. And but this movie, what's really cool is that, you know, like you know, or at least you think you know what the fuck is happening, you know.
Yep.
You know, because you get like that you know, the classic, you know, kids kind of partying a little too hard, accident happens, they fucking mow down a dude, they think he's dead, they all freak out trying to cover up their tracks, they just try to dispose of the body or whatever, you know, and then it just, like, you know, comes back to haunt them.
Absolutely,
and in a big way. You know?
Yeah, because it is, you know, it's and that's a thing that's been, you know, kind of done to death since this movie. You know, the whole plot concept of we just did something terrible, but we're not going to call the police because we're young and have our whole lives ahead of us, and it's going to, you know, dramatically affect us. So let's be selfish and try to cover this up, and then, you know, from the grave have these horrifying consequences. So you're right. It is another movie too that has like, and we're going to talk about another 2 movies that are similar, or 3 actually, where it comes to a young, attractive cast. You know, we got Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Ryan Phillippe, who I have always been a fan of, Freddie Prinze Jr., you know, you know, they are all, it's a very, you know, there's some movies where, like, for example, like, we talked about this before when we did the 80s, My Bloody Valentine, where I really enjoyed that movie because the cast isn't a bunch of attractive. It's just these, you know, these everydayers. But this is a movie where, because of the setting and because of the plot and everything, like, I actually enjoy the fact that it's these attractive young, you know, group of friends that, you know, it drastically affects them because, you know, we jump to a year later. Julie's coming home from school. You know, their group isn't really that close anymore. Helen's character, you know, had dreams of being an actress, and she works at she's like, her sister's her boss at a local store. So, you know, you can tell that although they chose to cover this up, yada yada yada, like they're definitely affected by it. But yeah, I think it's just it's a movie with a simple premise. That is well executed,
effective. Yeah, like, I mean, I love the pageant scene.
Oh,
you know, where, you know, like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's on stage, you know, and then she sees the killer coming up behind Phillippe, and you know, it's like, you know, she starts screaming, trying to, like, get awareness to the situation, and just gets drowned out by everything else going on, and then he gets attacked, and, you know, it's like shit like that just, like, those kind of scenes make this movie so fucking classic. That, and, like,
even
just the
sorry, what were we gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, you know, even just, like, you know, the mystery of, like, as a viewer, you think you know what's happening. And you follow them along as they're trying to investigate these things, and so you think it's going in a certain direction, and reality is, like, you know, it, like, you just don't really, you know, you can't predict when the killer's gonna pop up, and right. You know, it's, I don't know, it's just a fucking well done movie.
You mentioned how good the scene is at the pageant with Barry, but even further, like, the next, like a sequence with that Helen, you know, there's this great chase scene where she's getting driven home by a cop. The cop gets killed. She runs to the place she works. Her sister gets killed. And she, like, it's one of those awesome scenes where she's running through an alley. She's about to make it to this parade that's going on. And literally, like, 5 feet away, she gets brutally murdered, and another scene where, to the commotion and everything going on, no one even fucking notices it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, dude, it's so good. And, like, that entire sequence that you're talking about, like, you know, you're like, oh my god, she's gonna fucking make it, she's gonna fucking make it, she's gonna fucking make it, boom, nope. No, like, and you're just like,
because
damn, dude.
it's another one. It's obviously not to the extent of the Barrymore, because she lasts a greater length of the movie.
Totally.
But you think that she's gonna make it.
Well, all of these, like the 2 actors and the 2 actresses on that, you know, are the main cast, like the ones that you mentioned at the beginning, they were all in their element at this time in their
That's true.
careers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you really didn't expect. I don't know. It was just that, like, you didn't expect some of them to not make it through, because you're like, they're like the face of this movie, you know?
Yeah. One of my favorite things about this movie, though, is how, you know, rather than just jumping into killing them, like the killer toys with them at first. You know, there's the scene with Barry where he gets attacked and ran down, but he doesn't kill him. You know, he sneaks into Helen's room and cuts her hair at night. You know, he puts Max's dead body in the trunk of Julie's car, and he's toying with them at first. Yeah. He's toying with them. It's almost like in the animal world, where sometimes they'll play with their food before they kill them. But what I love about it is,
I like that.
He toys with them before he kills them, but it's one of those great things where these characters know that they're backed in a corner, and there's really nothing they can do about it because of the situation that led them to be in this situation. It's great.
Yeah, dude, that's what I mean. Where it's like, it's not your typical slasher in that way. Where it's like, that's such a great way of putting it. Like, they've put themselves in this situation, and they know that, and then it's like, now you're not only scrambling to escape the fucking killer, but you're scrambling to figure out a way out of that situation. Like, do we come clean? Do we, you know, like, oh man, I don't know. I just, though the sequels I don't think are like that, like, they're not as great as the original.
Right.
You know, this movie really had something going for it, and I don't know. Like, again, I think like people think of this movie now sometimes and think like, well, I might as well just watch Scream, and it's like, no, dude, they're different movies.
Yeah, and kind of like I said for From Dusk Till Dawn, this movie is way better than it has any right to be.
Definitely.
And you know, it sits in there with my, you know, it sits in there as one of my favorite, you know, slasher movies. I just think that it's super solid, and that you know, it kind of like another movie we're gonna two more movies actually that we're gonna be talking about relatively soon. It unfortunately kind of gets lumped in to that category of, you know, following on the coattails of Scream. And although, you know, sometimes I can understand that, like you said, it's a different type of movie. And also I think it's I just think it's a cool, you know, they could have tried to go like over the top with the design of the killer, but just, it's such a, you know, because they're in a fishing town, so just this guy in a slicker with the hook, it could be anybody. It's a really cool way.
Yeah, well, and that's what I think is like really effective about it. Like, unlike creating like a real, like going out of your way to create like an iconic character like Ghostface, like the Ghostface mask and all, and that, you know, you give this person, like this murderer, like the you know, kind of like a basic setup. And that, like, that almost makes it more frightening, because like you just said, it really could just be anybody in that fucking coat with a fucking hook, like,
totally,
you know. But yeah, definitely solid. There are a couple other random movies I think we should throw out there for 497.
Okay.
One of them, and I guess I never realized that it was a Guillermo del Toro movie, but sci-fi horror Mimic.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it's and like, I think I just saw like those, like the first three of those movies or something like that streaming somewhere, but you know, like, yeah, definitely like a kind of spooky, like, you know, like, was it's like a mutant, like a mutated cockroach that
it's
like
super cool.
yeah, and so you know, I don't know, it's a kind of a neat ride. But then another one and this is one I haven't seen in years, but I remember watching it back in the day, The Relic, which to me is like it's like, you know, the relic happened and then somebody along the way saw the relic and then was like, how do we dim that down? And then that's when they came up with Night at the Museum. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot about that. It's set in a
Well,
it's a good setting though. It's a good setting.
Oh yeah, dude, I think it's a fucking great idea, you know, like, you know, and it kind of creates like this, you know, it's like a beast movie almost, where it's like, you know, like it's almost a, you know, it's almost like a creature feature, you know, in a natural history museum. It's like, it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, 97 also gave us Wishmaster, which you know, the sequels are a little ridiculous, but I think that the original, that it's it's really cool concept, an original concept, and the original design of the Wishmaster in his Jin form is fantastic looking.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I'm a convert to the Wishmaster franchise. I think, you know, I think that it's a fun fucking movie, and I think it doesn't get enough recognition anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it kind of gets lumped into like into the same like category as like Leprechaun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I have a couple last shout outs from 97. So we have two, you know, wouldn't be a year in horror without Stephen King adaptations. We had The Night Flyer, which is based off of a short story, which is pretty solid. And we also had a remake, you know, because he directed Maximum Overdrive. We have a remake called Trucks, which is actually the name of the short story it's based on. And it's even worse than King's, because King's, you know, for as bad as it was, you know, it has a lot of fun elements to it, and some good performances, you know, with Emilio Estevez. There's even a young, you know, Giancarlo Esposito in the original, but yeah, the remake is awful. Yeah, stay away from it.
Yeah, real random in the weeds moment. Esposito, I've heard such heavy rumors that cat's in talks for an MCU role, and I've heard, and I would be down with seeing him in either of these. I've heard that he might be playing Doctor Doom or Magneto, which I could see either, because that dude has this like calm fucking like sinister energy about him that you just don't, you know, when he I don't know, dude. Like
he's such a good villain, dude.
Dude, his villain, yeah. Oh my god, I would love to see him as Doctor Doom, honestly. But anyway, yeah. I mean, 97, not a bad year. I mean, there's some really good spread. You know, some good like, you know, kind of beast horror movies with like Anaconda, and then, you know, there's some really great sci-fi with Event Horizon and things like Alien Resurrection that we mentioned. You know, and you know slashers, there's, you know, the obviously Cube, and you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer, that really rounded out. There's also like this random, and I don't know if I'd call it like I never viewed it as a horror movie. I just viewed it as kind of like a, I don't know, like a supernatural like movie or whatever, like the Devil's Advocate.
Okay.
Which is kind of like this, you know, it's sort of like, you know, one of those movies like next thing you know you're fucking working for the devil, like, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely got some like horror elements in it, you know. Yeah. It is a pretty, you know, I enjoy that movie for what it is.
Yeah, exactly, for what it is. It's definitely solid. But yeah.
So jumping into 98, it's, you know, so not it's we've discussed that I am a sucker for doll related horror, and obviously Child's Play franchise is one of my favorites. So, Bride of Chucky really, was one of those movies that really could have turned out differently because although in the terms of the universe, the movie is set like 8 months after the events of Child's Play 3, but obviously the first 3 are kind of the Andy Barclay trilogy.
Yeah.
And this is the first movie to kind of shy away from that, and go towards more centered around Chucky. But I think that Bride of Chucky is such a fucking awesome movie. It's one of my favorite movies in the franchise. It introduced, the fucked up Chucky look. It introduced Tiffany. And although, it spawned Seed of Chucky, which, is my least favorite. just Bride of Chucky, there's just so many, because, Chucky is kind of like Freddy Krueger and Leprechaun in the sense that he's gonna fucking kill you, but he's also going to spit some wisecracks at you.
Exactly.
And, so this movie definitely kind of ramps up the comedy more than the previous 3, but it also dishes on the gore and the horror and the dark elements and everything there is that you like about this character and this franchise. And it's just such a fun movie. It's such a fun movie because it play, there's like the subplot in the movie of this road trip element, where Chucky and Tiffany, you know what I mean? They and just the characters, the human characters that they go with, there's all this, they start to be paranoid about each other because of all these killings that are happening around them. And like I said, one of my favorite things about the Chucky is that since he's a doll, he's so unassuming that, you don't really think that he's going to kill you until he's, killing you.
Yeah. Well,
goddamn.
I like, and I'm probably guilty of it at times too. You just think like you said, so unassuming. You're just like, oh, it's just this fucking doll. Like, what's he gonna fucking do? Well, he's gonna fucking murder you, and yeah, it's kind of, it is really like neat that they found such a creative way of departing from their kind of main bread and butter storyline that they had up until this point.
That's a good point.
And then like creating that like the focus on Chucky as like a character, rather than just like a serial killer kind of, or just a killer. Was such a cool move. I feel like unlike Leprechaun, where Leprechaun really gets like super campy at times. Like Chucky, though, he likes, there's like all the wisecracks and all the jokes, like there's still a tone to the Chucky movies that really fucking hits,
Totally.
Yeah, and you're right. Like this, introducing Tiffany, like this, she becomes like this main character in the universe, really.
Yeah, she still is.
Yeah.
She was in the TV series. She was in Cult and Curse of Chucky. Like she's it's one of those things where they could have introduced her, and it could have just been this character. But the fact that she is so endearing. And that people are connected to her, and the one thing I will say that I do like about Seed of Chucky is how it has that like meta approach, where Jennifer Tilly plays herself in that movie. But anyway, Jennifer's Tiffany's a great character, and I really love just this aspect of she resurrects Chucky. And then Chucky fucking puts her into a doll, what I mean? So, and it's just obviously, like I said, they're off to find the heart of Damballa, which was buried with Charles Lee Ray, and them, making this trip to Hackensack, New Jersey, and just kill all these deaths that happen along the way, including one of the most memorable kills in the franchise, and one that was kind of replicated in Cult of Chucky. But the scene at the hotel where the two people are fucking on the waterbed, and Chucky, they break the glass and it just falls. Oh my god, it's such a beautiful scene,
dude. You know, if there's a waterbed in a horror movie, you know something's about to happen.
True. And John Ritter's death, and I love John Ritter.
Yeah.
You know, he his role in this movie is real short and real sweet, but holy shit, does he make it memorable? And just the way he dies is so creative too. Yeah. I just think it's a movie that, because, like I mentioned, because of the comedy elements and because of shying away from, like you said, the formula, it was really a movie where they were taking a gamble, you know, because they could have went, like you mentioned, with kind of like the cookie cutter aspect, but the fact that they decided to take a big swing on something completely different and just smash a home run, you know, because, it just speaks to, Don Mancini's creation of Chucky, and you know,
I agree, man.
Dude, you know, Bride of Chucky is it's another one of those movies, like Scream, you know, like From Dusk Till Dawn, where anytime it's put on streaming or anytime I come across it, I'm watching it. I can watch it a million times and still come away with a smile on my face.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. That's like you get your horror fix, but you also get like just like an overall just like entertainment, you know.
That's true.
Which sometimes you can leave a good horror movie a little unsettled. Sometimes you can leave one having had a really great time, you know. And that's what you get with, like, I think most of the Chucky movies.
That's true. So before you jump into your next pick, I just got a couple, shout outs. So we got The Dentist 2, which we talked about.
Oh yeah.
And it's oh my god, those movies are great. We have following up on the success of I Know What You Did Last Summer. We have I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which, as we mentioned, is kind of lackluster. It's not the worst sequel ever made. Speaking of sequels, we've got Witchcraft 10, Mistress of the Craft. We've got The Prophecy 2, Phantasm 4, and
another Phantasm movie,
which is pretty solid. And then Children of the Corn 5 and Curse of the Puppet Master. So just some sequels, just to kind of quickly, rapid fire blast.
Yeah, there's some good. Oh man, I'm blanking on the order we established, but I'm just gonna jump into one of them.
Faculty.
Yeah. So yeah, we have invoked the name already, but yeah, much like the Craft, and Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. This movie is another sort of like, high school centered sci-fi horror, and this is, it's such a fucking. I mean, this movie is like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but fucking ramped up and like made into like modern,
Yeah. It's also written by Kevin Williamson. And directed by Robert Rodriguez, which we've name dropped multiple times.
Yeah, and that's one of those things I think people can forget, is that this is, a Rodriguez movie, and it has a fucking stacked cast too. Like,
yes, it does. It does.
Like Jordana Brewster, like fucking Josh Hartnett, Jean Grey's in it, Famke Jensen.
Yeah, there's also a lot of like, Elijah Wood, obviously.
Yeah, John
Usher.
Yeah, dude.
Robert
Usher.
Patrick. There's also like some horror icons that have small roles, like Piper Laurie. She's just plays a small role, but yeah, there's Christopher, Shooter McGavin's in it.
Yeah.
Danny Masterson has a cameo. Yeah, dude, it's got a wild ass cast.
Yeah.
But dude,
it's
this
such
movie,
a fucking cool movie, man. Like,
oh man, I remember I have a memory of this movie because it's another. I say this a lot, but I love this movie. I remember my buddy Ryan growing up. Like his parents had like a shitload of movies, but they never really had any horror movies. But I remember like anytime I'd go over there, like I'd force Ryan to watch The Faculty, and it got to the point where he's like, "Dude, why? Like, what the fuck? Like, can't you pick anything else?" I'm like, "No, I don't have this movie at my house. We're watching The fucking Faculty." And then he ended up like giving it to me, like, "Here, just fucking take it."
Like, I'm sick of watching it. You watch it on your own.
Yeah, but yeah,
it does, dude. It has so much replayability because it's such a fucking. I don't know. It's like the pace of the movie really like ropes you in. You know, you. I mean, what would you do if this happened in real life? Where it's like, you know, it's like on one hand you just, you know, like you discover some sort of weird life form, and that life form seems to start fucking taking people's bodies over, you know, taking over their mind, whatever, and you know, it's just like up to you, like you're the one that notices, you know, and you have to start spreading the word, or you have to start trying to figure out what to do about it.
Yeah, it's a classic but great concept, you know, where a group of teens that no one's going to believe, and this thing's taking over parental figures, teachers, police, you know, authority figures, and you're kind of like, you know, no, you're like, it's up to us, like you said. And like you said, you know, it kind of it is like Invasion of the Body Snatchers ramped up and a little more exciting and a little cooler when it comes to you know, creating these new alien like especially at the end, near the end when she's in her alien form. But it also, you know, it has homages to other things. You know, there's the really cool scene where they're at Zeke's house, where he in his garage, where he has all the, you know, he makes his scat, his drug.
Scat.
And they have this scene, which is, you know, obviously an homage to The Thing, where they're all snorting it, trying to see who is human and who has been infected. It's solid.
It's such a creative like homage to The Thing, you know, like just enough because of the tension in that scene and everything. It's like just enough to give you the vibes there. And like I think that's one thing that like a good horror movie can sometimes do is sort of like, you know, tip the hat to the things that came before it. You know, The Thing is one of the greatest fucking alien horror movies of all time.
Absolutely.
And you know, this movie, like, I feel like this movie is also like a really great like alien horror movie. I think it's downplayed a little bit more because it's you know, it has that like high school kid kind of vibe a little bit, but
true.
But it still is just as fucking sinister of a situation, man.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and like, you know, who is the Mary Beth, the character who like ends up, you know, being the fucking like alien queen, and you think everything's cool because they all, like you were saying, they all, you know, have some of Josh Hartnett's wonky drugs, and you know, then you find out just like, oh well, she just fucking faked it, and so like she's been amongst us the
whole time.
Yeah, like fucking mind fuck, dude.
But like you said though, late in the movie, there's this really great scene where you know, at this point, you know, there's a scene earlier in the movie where they're doing at the school, all these teachers that are infected, they're calling kids in to the nurse's office to do exams, and they're infecting them. But there's this really great scene kind of near the end of the movie where there's a football game and there's a traveling team, and while they're playing football, they're out there infecting these other players. So it's like, you know, obviously at the end of the movie, you know, they realize that, you know, if we take the queen out, it'll revert everybody. But just this cool scene where there's this football game going on, members from the other team are getting infected, and just knowing like the consequence of that if this movie would have continued to where it would have branched out from this small town back to wherever they were from and just continued to grow.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, dude. It's frightening, and you know, like it leaves you on the note where it's like, you know, like though you know the events to be true, you know, like the authorities and whatnot are trying to squash the
Of course,
truth, you know, and so you're like, you know, it gives you like X-File vibes a little bit, you know?
Absolutely.
Which is always fucking cool.
But there's just some what were you gonna say?
I was just you know, I was gonna say, like, I think it's, you know, that was you know, another big thing at the time, where it's like, you know, you're starting to, with like the, you know, the internet coming out and like, you know, starting to like really roll out more and more every year. You know, people are getting access to the stories and things that they you know, probably didn't know about, and like this kind of thing, you know, this kind of movie plot line like really fits in with like, you know, some like, you know, the idea of like some conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and so it just kind of it gives you like the heebie-jeebies, like, man, I you know, I can't speak enough about how fucking fun this movie is, man.
Yeah, and there's some great imagery. You know, the scene where Jon Stewart's character gets stabbed in the eye.
Yeah.
There's the scene where they cover the principal in scat, and she just like dissolves. And then there's one of the coolest scenes is where Famke Johnson's character, her head gets removed from her body, and it's like moving on its, you know, there's some awesome imagery in this movie. And like, I don't know, man, it's just like, I know Robert Rodriguez has such a weird, you know, filmography from the, you know, El Mariachi and Desperado to Sin City to the fucking Spy Kids. But honestly, like we mentioned, you know, from Dusk Till Dawn and The Faculty, those are probably my two, and I might get some shit for this, but those are my two favorite movies in this filmography, just because of how wild and different they are, and how creative, you know, and how they kind of take aspects of things that have been done before, but totally make a new formula with it. So also, you know, some fun facts about this movie. It's Usher's film debut. Because he was in like She's All That. He plays like the DJ and She's All That. But apparently it was through this movie, through like someone on the set, that Elijah Wood heard about Lord of the Rings and got his like big break, essentially. So that's cool.
That is super cool. Without The Faculty, we wouldn't have had Elijah Wood as Frodo. Damn, dude. But
yeah, I think this is a movie that gets overlooked. You know, it's another one that kind of gets lumped in with Scream and movies of its time, but it's just so different. It's, you know, it's not a slasher, obviously. It's more, you know, it's got some horror elements, but I love a good sci-fi movie, like you said, with paranoia and, you know, not knowing who you can trust around you. Those are always some of my favorite themes in movies.
Yeah, no, I agree. But what else do we got from 1998?
Well, we have one of many adaptations of this, and it's one of Argento's worst movies, but Argento has a version of Phantom of the Opera that came out this year.
Yeah.
We also had a movie that I almost picked, but we'll probably end up picking when we get to the 2000s. But we have the Japanese version of The Ring, Ringu, which is such a creepy, disturbing, unsettling fucking movie.
Yeah. And then we also, this is one that we both kind of mentioned interest in. Motherfucking Blade, dude.
Yo, dude.
Wesley goddamn Snipes is fucking Blade. Like, there is no like understating this movie. Like, this movie's so fucking cool,
dude. Like a decade before Iron Man set the bar for, you know, Blade did it first, and it was R-rated, and it was like a small, you know, bit character. Dude, Blade is insanely good.
Dude, there's so much goddamn gore in Blade. It's fucking awesome. I mean, the opening sequence alone, where you follow this random human to a fucking like meat locker dance club, and then like all these you come to find out that you're in a room full of fucking vampires, and like all that blood starts coming out of the fire water spigots, and like everybody's just covered in fucking blood and dancing around, and Blade just comes rolling in, just taking homies out. Dude, it was so fucking cool, man.
Wesley Snipes' best role.
Yeah,
he has some of the best one-liners. I'm only going to remember one of them. I wish I could remember both, but there's a line near the end of the movie when he's battling Deacon Frost, and he's like, some motherfuckers always want to ice skate up hills.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, I forget the other line, but it's just like, it's amazing, dude.
It's so fucking cool.
It's so good, dude.
Yeah.
And I just think it's wild too. Like we mentioned, that is this fucking Marvel property that they turned into this R-rated fucking gore-filled brutal romp. Like who would have thought? You know what I mean? Like,
well, exactly, man. Like this movie was so successful, and then I mean, this is just, I feel like the truth is like is that Blade kicked in the interest for
absolutely
for comic book properties again, and then that's why you end up having X-Men, which was a smash success, and then you end up having Spider-Man. Even though those movies are very toned down in comparison to the content of Blade, like you wouldn't have them without Blade.
I completely agree.
One of the cool things I remember reading about Snipes and this movie was that he had like originally pitched interest in a Black Panther movie.
Interesting.
And so he himself was had started studying all these different forms of like martial arts from around the African continent, and so that kind of got incorporated into some of the choreography that you end up seeing with him in the movie. Which was I just think really cool because, like you mentioned, like Blade was such an off the cuff fucking character to pull up.
Oh my god!
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so random.
Yeah, but
to the point where most people didn't even know it was a Marvel property. Yeah. And I am obviously because I love the character of Blade. I'm looking forward to the reboot, but I'm having tempered expectations because I don't think there's no way it's going to be able to top.
The unfortunate thing is that now that Disney owns Marvel, like you're never gonna see a Blade movie like this again. What I mean? You're gonna see like a really toned down version of Blade, which is unfortunate because the character's so fucking cool. And Mahershala Ali, I think is a great actor, and I think he'll do a great job in the role. But it's like, unless you're fucking taking out home like vamps like Wesley Snipes is in this movie and the sequel Blade 2, like you got nothing on it. Sorry.
I do think it's kind of like random that they are making another one, like because I feel like if they are, like they might as well do another Ghost Rider and like end up doing like a Midnight Suns movie. But
I wish,
that'd be dope.
Take Sam, now that Sam Raimi's back involved in some of these comic book movies, give him the rights to do a Midnight Sun movie and make it fucking horror, dude.
And make it rated R. Yeah, that'd be dope.
Oh man, but yeah, but that's not the only. We do have a couple other movies we gotta mention. I think you have a couple set aside fits for that are still at an 98.
Well, we each have. I have two more, and you have one more. But I want to jump into another, the last one I talked about was Child's Play, which is an established franchise. And I kind of want to jump into another established franchise, this time with, and I'm repeating myself, but another one of my favorite horror movies from this time, and one of my all-time, long-lasting, guilty pleasure. And it's a good movie, so I don't know why I'm saying guilty pleasure, but one of those movies I can watch anytime is 1998's Halloween H2O. which, you know, is directed by Steve Miner, who had done Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3. So it had an established horror director behind it. You know, it's the 7th installment, but it retcons the previous 3. It retcons, you know, the Cult of Thorn trilogy, and it's a direct follow-up to 2. And I think that's to its benefit. You know, it's another movie with a young, good-looking cast. You know, it's got Josh Hartnett in it too, Michelle Williams. You know, it's got LL Cool J in it, like the hip factor. But I love this movie because of how it moves away. You know, it moves away from the Haddonfield setting to a new location. You know, it has some of those legacy characters like Marion Chambers at the beginning.
Yeah.
It has some great kills. And it just, you know, the whole concept of Jamie Lee this whole time has, you know, has a fake identity, has moved on, and, you know, 20 years later, you know, the most traumatic thing in her life comes crawling back when she least expect it, you know.
Yeah. No, it's a mind fuck, man. Like, because, like, even, you know, that's the thing, like, throughout the movie you have all these characters telling Laurie, like, you know, that happened 20 years ago. You don't still think he's out there, like, right? You know, yeah. And like, fuck all. Yeah, it's Michael Myers, man. He's fucking out there, like, yeah. It's I thought this was funny. So this movie was actually Josh Hartnett's like first film.
Yeah. Like, wait, are you sure?
Yeah, this was his feature film debut was in Halloween H2O.
No, I don't know about that,
dude.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was curious because when I watched it just the other day, and they did give him the credit that says introducing Josh Hartnett.
Oh my god,
Like, I think it's like, what, I mean, it'd be great to come out swinging on a fucking movie, like a property, like a Halloween movie, you know.
I did not know that. I'll be damned.
But yeah, I mean, you know, him playing, you know, Laurie's like son.
It's a cool dynamic.
Yeah, they have like an interesting like relationship in the movie, and, you know, like, just I will say this, like, the idea that, you know, I mean, I think she says it even in the movie where, like, somebody was like, he's not still out there, and she's like, he waited 15 years in a fucking mental asylum for me. Like, what don't you think? What makes you think that he's not waiting now? You know, and then, like, to like follow Michael Myers, kind of on that like cross country, you know, trek to her. Like, you're just like, there's no bounds for this fucking guy, you know. And he's just as unrelenting in this movie as always, you know. Absolutely. Which is something I fucking love about his character.
Of course.
There's like that. You know, kind of nod to, like, I mean, and you see it, like, it's kind of like a reoccurring thing in Halloween movies, the roadside bathroom scene, you know, or, you know, and I mean,
I do think it's
movies kind of also keep playing on that, you know.
I do think it's interesting that he spared those two people, you know, like he's only going to kill people that are like in his direct path of getting to his end goal. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because, like, at the beginning, he kills Marion Chambers and Joseph Gordon-Levitt's, you know, character.
Yeah, dude, that was also funny. Like, I forgot that young Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in it. And he's like, yeah, I've been suspended from school 5 times.
Just like, I think it's cool. You don't see his death on scene, but the aftermath of his death with his fucking ice skate in his face. Brutal. Yeah.
It was a cool looking fucking piece of makeup, man. Like the ice skate sticking out of his fucking face.
Yeah, but like I mentioned, one of the things that I really like about horror in general is, like, horror that deals with trauma. You know what I mean? And this trauma of it has been 20 years later, but she's literally still affected by it, and has carried that this whole entire time.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, that's one of the interesting elements of it is that you're kind of picking up and like learning how she's dealt with it, and like in this movie, she's like there's kind of like not like they kind of allude to her having like a little bit of a dependency on alcohol and stuff like that, and so it's like, yeah, dude, she's like, I mean, this has affected her in a lot of ways as a person, and it's just such a fucking. It was a lot more fun than I hadn't watched it in a while, and so that's why, like, when we were talking about movies, I was just like, yo, dude, I like you had mentioned it. I had somebody else randomly bring it up, and then like a week ago or something, I was like talking to a customer about Halloween movies, and they mentioned Halloween H2O, and I was just like, fuck, dude, I need to like watch it again. Like, it's on my radar again, man, and it's like even like all the way up until the ending, which is fucking wild. It's
oh my god, yeah,
so good, dude.
Just the he obviously has like some memorable death scenes. There's the character that is in the dumb waiter. But just like the great standoff at the end, and then her realizing I don't think he's dead, so hijacking the ambulance. That whole sequence, he gets pinned between a tree and the ambulance, and she fucking decapitates him. Dude. Was great. And they should have just ended it there. Yeah. But no, they had to make fucking Halloween Resurrection, where they come up with this dumbass fucking reason to how he didn't really. Oh man. Anyway.
Well, because if I'm correct, like Halloween Resurrection, wasn't it like somehow the body was switched or something like that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So they explained that he when the paramedics came, that he had sprung to life, choked one of them so hard that he like snapped their larynx or whatever to where they couldn't speak. Put the Myers mask on him, and then he walked away in the paramedic's outfit. But that's totally fucking stupid, because that person, there's no way that the guy could have just pulled the Michael Myers mask off and been like, I'm not Michael, I'm the paramedic. It's so stupid.
Yeah, exactly, because there's that whole scene where like he's like, Mike's like reaching out his hand, and Jamie almost touches it, and then she fucking lops right before she lops the head off, and it's like, wouldn't that dude, if he had that strength, wouldn't he just take the mask off? Like,
absolutely. It's so
either way though, it's still a fucking fun movie, man.
It's so great, and I love it, dude. It's so good. But here's some interesting facts about this movie. So there's multiple masks in this movie. There's 4 different masks, and one of them in a real quick scene is CGI, which is ridiculous. So here's an interesting one. So John Carpenter was initially going to direct it, but he wanted a three picture deal, and he wanted $10 million. And they wouldn't agree to that, so he walked away. And then lastly, apparently in 2003, on the FX channel, there was like an alternate version that played with like that added and extended certain scenes that wasn't in the original, and it hasn't been released elsewhere, which is super weird.
That's so random. Like,
yeah, it is random. But I'm glad. The one thing I like about this movie is how they did retcon the whole Cult of Thorn trilogy and kind of bring him back to just this like who is this guy and what are his intentions sort of deal.
Definitely.
And like I said, Resurrection was awful, but I really liked Halloween 2018, but I was bummed out when for the second time a Halloween movie retconned, and it retconned everything that came except for the first Halloween, which is kind of a bummer. But that's what's interesting about this franchise, is that there's fucking 3 different, technically 4, because there's the Rob Zombie ones, but there's 3 different like storylines and universes. It's wild.
Yeah,
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like, Halloween will forever be like tops of my list in terms of horror franchises.
Oh,
always.
That's without a doubt.
Yeah.
So I got a couple quick more shout outs before you jump in. You have one more and I have one more for this year. So we have Apt Pupil, which like I said, it wouldn't be a horror year without a King adaptation. There's two of them actually. There's Apt Pupil, which is based on a short story about like a kid that gets attached to an older neighbor who was a Nazi. And then there's Sometimes They Come Back for More, which is a really cool concept about this guy who's a high school teacher, and kids in his class start dying, and then a new kid will enter the class, but these new kids that enter his class bear a really close similarity to these group of kids that bullied him and ended up killing his brother in an accident when they were kids. And it's like him dealing with the trauma of that, and ultimately, the supernatural element to it, and he ends up, killing this group. It's pretty cool. The movie is not that good, but the short story is fucking fantastic.
Interesting. Yeah, that's cool. Like, I don't know if I actually caught that movie though, but
all right, well,
I'll have to maybe check it out.
So what is?
Well, I also want to mention that this year, the one last shout out I had for this year was John Carpenter's Vampires.
Okay.
Which is a fucking baddie movie. No pun intended.
No pun intended. James.
Yeah.
James Woods is great in that movie.
Dude, that movie's fucking gnarly at times, but just another it's just another off the rails John Carpenter movie.
It really is.
My last pick for this year is actually a remake, and
oh yikes!
Yeah, and I'm not usually a big fan of remakes, but I just honestly this movie passed me by up until about like 3 or 4 years ago, and the remake of Psycho by Gus Van Sant is like I think they do a really good job. In terms of paying homage to the original.
Well, continue, and then I'll have a question for you.
Yeah. I just, how is it? I know it didn't get received well, but I don't know. I just think they did a good job capturing some of the vibes. I will say Van Sant has a tendency to be like a little more artsy than probably necessary at times. But like Vince Vaughn turns look at his
filmography. You know what I mean?
A really fucking creepy role. Like, if
okay.
I just think I don't know. I just remember being kind of caught off guard by how much I enjoyed it when I watched it.
Okay, because you and I don't really disagree too often. But I'm gonna for once I feel that I don't really enjoy this movie because so a lot of the times with remakes there's gonna be things that are similar, but usually people will add their own flair to it, or parts will be different. But this movie is like almost essentially like a shot-for-shot remake, even in the way with like the camera movements, the editing. They built the set that they built, was literally built in front of the sets from the original movie. So I don't know, man. I just feel like, especially like you mentioned with the director who did it, like he could have done it and done some different things to it instead of like essentially making the same movie to where it was like, what was the point?
Well, and that almost to me is like the interesting thing about this movie was that like, because Psycho is such a pivotal fucking movie in horror and the horror genre, like instead of reinterpreting, though they do to some extent, because this remake is based in the 90s rather than right. The idea that like you can't make it better, but like you can like update it in a way is sort of intriguing to me. To the point where like reading about it, they went as far as to like like you said, there's like shots that look exactly the same, camera movements looks like exactly the same at parts, even like the shower scene they did like the sound exactly the same, by using a melon, stabbing a melon, shit like that. But Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't really like. You know, it's interesting to frame it like that because it is like it does sort of seem unnecessary. You know, I'll admit that it seems very unnecessary, but I think it's well done for being unnecessary. Like
Okay. I
because
mean, and,
yeah,
and maybe maybe I need to rewatch it, but I feel that way like about a lot of movies. Like, for example, Let the Right One In. I absolutely fucking love that movie.
yeah.
And then there's the American remake, which is pretty similar, and it pisses me off to the point of
It's a lot worse. Yeah.
like, what was the fucking need? Like, people could have just enjoyed the fucking original, which is amazing. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's one thing where I just get really heated about it.
Yeah.
But maybe I need to rewatch Psycho because I do really like Vince Vaughn. You know, he's mainly known for comedy, but have you seen Freaky yet?
Yeah.
Dude, he's so great in that movie too.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like he's one of those actors. You give him something different, and he like runs with it. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
You know, like with him, I like my the most iconic character for me that Vince Vaughn's ever played is his character in Swingers. You know,
Okay.
where it's like, you know, this like fast talking motherfucker, and you know, to give him like a character like Norman Bates is just such an opposite of how you'd see him. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I definitely like I can see that. Like, it's fascinating because of the powerful history that Psycho brings, but it's not like this movie doesn't bring much new, if anything new, to the table in terms of what this movie is. You know, I don't know. Yeah, I just remember being kind of entranced by it, and that's why I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm glad to hear your thoughts on it, because it's like, you know, reading more about it, it's like right here it says on Rotten Tomatoes, Psycho holds an approval rating of 38%. That's pretty rough,
Right.
you know. And like things like the year it was released, it won a golden raspberry for like, you know.
Yeah, for worst remake and worst director.
Yeah, dude. And here I am being like, I fucking love it. I don't know. Maybe it's just like, maybe to me it is like the homage to it all, like the direct nod. But I don't know. I mean, like, it makes, to me, this movie helps make the original Psycho more immortal. You know? So I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, this, you know, Psycho is you know, those movies where you know, it's credited with being one of the first slashers. It's just such a timeless, iconic movie to where, you know, and like we mentioned, like a lot of things, and this is something that'll always be discussed, but, you know, it's a movie that just didn't need to be remade. And I actually saw this quote from Gus Van Sant that he remade it so nobody else had to. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's such a weird, like his filmography, like you mentioned, he's this like auteur, you know, like Drugstore Cowboy, My Own Private Idaho,
Yeah.
Good Will Hunting. Like, it's such a departure from his. It's almost like one of those things where he, you know, maybe he wanted, because it was a remake, maybe he wanted to have something that was a little easier of a project, or something that he could like phone it in a little bit, and didn't have to make this like grand creative what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, like, because all of his others were like really independent kind of like ideas, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's you know, it's not like it's Psycho. It's not like a really like fast-paced movie. You know where it's going.
Oh, for sure.
And so, you know, it like you're like, to me, you watch it for like the performances and and like the clean visuals that you get from it. But
yeah.
But what's your last pick for 98?
So my last pick, before I do my last pick, I just have three more shout outs, because two of them are movies that I haven't seen, but after like kind of briefly reading about them, I'm really interested in seeing. There's one called The Clown at Midnight, which sounds really interesting. And there's also a movie that is labeled as a pornographic splatter film, and it's called Tumbling Doll of Flesh. So, yeah, I wanna seek those two out. Because sometimes, a movie just its title alone will be like, you know.
Oh yeah, Tumbling Doll of Flesh. Like, what the fuck is that movie about? Like,
and then we also had we had Deep Rising, which is another kind of like weird alien-like creature in the water type movie. Kind of akin to like The Abyss, or except it's not centered where they're like somewhere deep under the water, but Deep Rising's actually, for what it is, it's got some entertainment to it. But my last movie for 98, kind of sticking to how we've talked about a lot of movies that are centered, this one's isn't college, so it's not high school, but it's another movie that's unfortunately lumped in as a Scream ripoff, and which it really shouldn't, because of all these different slasher movies of this time, Urban Legend has the most creative, unique aspect of it. It's literally a horror movie, a slasher horror movie centered around urban legends. And everything about it works for me, because I remember being a kid, always wanting to go to the library and find a book about urban legends. There's in different cultures, different cultures have different urban legends or their own spin. It's just such a cool concept, man. Like, I'm surprised it took that long for something like that to come around. You know what I mean?
That is one of those things I was shocked by. It's like it seems wild that it was, 98 when like a movie like this was made. Because there's tons of movies that, kind of sort of lean towards, like, they paint like homages to specific ones. I Know What You Did Last Summer, the classic The Hook, kind of urban legend.
True.
Shit like that. But this movie is like, urban legend's fucking fantastic. Like, this is another one I just recently rewatched.
Okay.
And I forgot how much fucking fun it is. I forgot how, the sweet twist that leads you all the way to the end of the movie. Like, it's you get some crazy fun and cool performances from some of the actors. Like, it's a fucking solid watch, man. And it has a Brad Dourif cameo, so but it's another one that has a lot of the cast is younger. Maybe some of them are established, some of them aren't. There's Jared Leto, Alicia Witt, Rebecca Gayheart, Tara Reid, Joshua Jackson, Danielle Harris has a small role in it. So there's some credibility, and then there's some newcomers. But they all do so well in their roles. Even like I said, and there's just the different urban legends that are used for kill scenes. There's the killer in the back seat, the Bloody Mary, the Pop Rocks and Soda is referenced. The Pop Rocks and Soda was a wild one, man. Like I mean, that was a really fun, creative death to kind of throw in the movie.
Well, it wasn't a death. It was just like a prank in the class. But
there's the prank in the class, but then he does it to him in the toilet. So instead of
that's right.
Soda,
you're
he
right.
shoves like Pop Rocks and like some sort of chemical in his mouth and like makes him fucking.
You're right. My bad.
Yeah.
But that was cool. Yeah. And then there's the boyfriend hanging from the tree, the headlights, aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? That
one was the fucked up one to me.
Yes, it was.
Dude, like going into the room, you think, of course, like, my roommate's fucking banging again. Like, they're fucking again. Like, okay, don't worry, I'm not going to bother you. Like, you've yelled at me a million times. But then you just to wake up and to know that your fucking roommate was murdered in her bed right next to you where you sleep. and right under your fucking nose, and then somebody paints that like phrase in blood on the wall. Like, fuck that, dude. Like, I'm never going back to that dorm room ever again. Like, I'm fucking done. Like,
yeah, dude, it's great.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
then-
like you said in this,
Yeah.
what were you gonna say?
Oh, and then I was gonna say, dude, and then like the way it ends is just, I love it. Like, I love it because you're building up. Like, you like the whole movie. It's one of those, you think you know who done it, and then you don't. And then you realize like you don't know, and then you think they figured it out again, and then you don't know again. And then you just like, you know, it's just like it messes with you a bit, you know.
Yeah, it is, you know, because it's like, you know, it's her best friend, and then we learn, you know, that her and one of her friends had in an urban legend type way, due to the headlight initiation type of thing, led to the death of this character's boyfriend, and so she's enacting her revenge, and she's been the one that's been the killer the whole time, but you don't see it coming. You're right.
I would say like Tara Reid's death sequence is probably the most annoying in the movie, though, because it's just like it's so much screaming.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And she's a bad actress, so
yeah, there is that too. but dude, like I like I was saying though, like all the way up until the very end of the movie, you get one of those kind of classic twist endings. You know what I mean? Which I fucking love so much, and so like.
Talking about like where she is alive and she's at the other college at the end.
So like she becomes the urban legend, right?
Yeah.
Like so this dickhead's like telling this story about like the murders that she just performed, and then like the end is like her, you know, Greyheart's character being like, "No, see, you told it all wrong. Let me tell you the real, you know, how it really went." And like you're just like, "Fuck, dude, she's still alive."
It's a great way to cap off the movie for sure.
Oh, I love those kind of endings. Always. Like,
yeah,
urban legend, man. Definitely, like always. It's such an entertaining movie to have in the line.
Oh, everything about it. Like I said, the concept, the performances, the kills. It's just so creative. And again, although it is kind of lumped into that Scream category, I think that, you know, it is one of those movies that either maybe might not have been made or been given the green light because of Scream, and definitely wouldn't have been as successful if it wasn't for Scream. So
yeah, I mean, I think I definitely think like Scream helped kick open the door for movies like this, but you know, like you said, this movie is like a different movie than Scream for sure.
Yeah. Yep, it is, and it's another one that I will always recommend to people, and always have a fun time watching.
Fuck yeah!
So jumping into '99, the last year of the '90s, obviously, you know, we each have one more pick. So before you jump into your last one, I just want to pop off, you know, reoccurring theme here, but quite a lot of sequels this year. We have Candyman 3: Day of the Dead, which we covered. There's Children of the Corn 6, or Children of the Corn 666, I should say.
Isaac's Return.
Yeah, which is cool because he does the character, you know, we just did Tammy and the T-Rex, and he was an actor in that, but he does return to his role as Isaac, which is cool. From Dusk Till Dawn 2, happened this year. We have The Rage Carrie 2, which is actually a lot better of a sequel than it you know what I mean, than it gets credit for.
Really, that's one like I've always seen. I've seen the cover of. I've seen it, you know, on a streaming site. I just never watched it.
You should give it a watch.
Yeah. Okay. I've always been curious about it. You know. Yep. That's cool. I'm glad to hear that because that might be tonight even.
Yeah. We also have you should. I would recommend it. We also have Retro Puppet Master, Ringu 2. Let's see, Warlock 3. I've never seen any of the Warlock movies. Just, you know, I feel like I need to watch the first one. But and we have another sequel that we've covered as well. Wishmaster 2: Evil Never Dies.
Yeah, dude.
which is such a wild ride.
Yeah, that movie, wild ride indeed. Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's like a hodgepodge. And I mean, there are a good few movies on here that I'm like familiar with, but need to take like I want to take a look at like The Astronaut's Wife. Like,
okay.
I've heard it's like Johnny Depp and Charlize Theron, and it's kind of like this sort of like slow. From what I understand, it's like a slow burning kind of like spooky movie where it's like, you know, over the movie you get the vibe that like I believe it's Johnny Depp's character has been like taken over by like an alien or something like that.
Huh.
You know,
yeah, I've never seen it.
yeah, there's this another like random sort of demonic Satan related, you know, action horror I'd call it.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this? It's the end of days. Lol.
Yeah.
With Arnold.
Yeah.
The Schwarzenegger man, you know, he had one under his belt.
Yeah, you know, because he's obviously in Predator, which had some horror elements, but like to have him in a movie that's like labeled as horror was interesting.
Yeah. And then one I almost picked was House on Haunted Hill.
Okay.
I almost picked it because it's a fun haunted house, you know, movie. It's not. I think it's technically it's got to be like a bit of a remake, I believe.
It
right?
is. It is.
Yeah, and yeah, but like, you know, you have a great cast with it. But you also, I don't know. It's just like the CGI is kind of the thing that throws me off in it. Like the CGI doesn't hold up anymore. It's kind of wonky,
it does not.
That 90s wonkiness, but you still get kind of like the fun sort of supernatural haunted house ghost story, you know.
Yeah. There's also there's the Haunting of Hell House remake this year, and a movie called The Haunting. So there's like 3 movies that were like in the same vein that came out that year.
Yeah.
There's also Sleepy Hollow, which is, dude. You know,
Sleepy Hollow is a fucking solid movie, though, man. Like,
it is.
I really enjoy that movie. The atmosphere of that movie.
True.
It sucks you right in. It's like a perfect fucking October movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also like what?
I have a couple more, but I'm gonna save them until.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna save them until before my last movie. So, but if you have some, go for it.
The only other random one that I wanted to shout out was the sort of horror comedy Idle Hands.
Ooh, yeah.
That one's a fun one. It's a possessed hand. The fuck are you gonna do with that?
It has a good cast too, and sometimes horror comedy doesn't. It's it can be hard to pull off, but I think they toe the line in this movie.
Yeah. But my last official pick for 1999.
It's a doozy.
It's 1999's Audition. Audition is a fucked up movie on a lot of different levels. Like there's this whole social aspect of this movie that's kind of fucked up. That leads the characters in the direction that the movie's like. If you've heard of this movie, you know where it culminates.
Dear God, yeah.
But like, just the hardcore fucking like visuals of this movie and fucking action that ends up happening where it's like you basically follow this. I don't know, like, was he like a fucking TV producer or something like that? It's something weird like that.
Yeah, because his friend is a film producer.
Yeah, who like sets up these like a series of interviews basically auditions. For this audition. I guess it's the name of the movie, right? Auditions for this for his friend who's like a widower to meet like a new woman, and
which is it's pretty crummy. It's like fucked up that they have these false pretenses of like luring these women in to try to find this guy a new wife. It is fucked up, and playing with someone like that is really just not a cool thing to do. But I will say that regardless, he didn't deserve, the punishment that he ultimately gets.
Truth. And that's the real twist, is that the character's name's Asami, and she eventually, like, you think this movie's maybe going to be like, ends up with her demise or something, but that's the, like, one of the
it does, though.
It does, but like one of the great twists in this movie is that, like, she's really the fucked up one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Through like flashbacks and shit.
Yeah. I mean, there's some fucking gnarly bits. I mean, the piano wire going through, sawing through the bone, the acupuncture, the needles in the eyes and everywhere. Like, there's this menacing ass shot where it's like, you think like the body's still and there's all these needles in it, and then like you just like the body kind of moves a little bit and all the needles kind of like clank around a little, like a fucking breeze blowing in a wind. Like, it's so disturbing. The fact that she's like making this individual that she is handicapped eat his own like vomit,
yeah, the guy that's in the back, because all she has in her because after the audition it shows her, and all she has in her apartment is a phone and a sack, and we learn later what's in that sack. And like, we also learn that that she probably murdered this bar owner, and there was some parts left behind. There was 3 fingers, an ear, a piece of a tongue, and then we see later that this guy in the sack is missing those parts. So yeah, there's clearly something wrong with this girl. And although she has some trauma involved with men, and men saying that they're going to love her forever and not doing so, her methods of revenge are way too far. But
she definitely takes it to an extreme.
We'll never be able to do the scenes, the depictions of violence and torture justice, but goddamn, they're fucking like, even to the point where like Rob Zombie said this is the most like unsettling movie he's ever seen, which is crazy coming from him. Yeah. And this movie definitely is an influence on like the torture porn wave that would come a couple years later.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of what makes those visuals like what makes those things so disturbing is like the pace at which you experience them. Like when the she's sawing through like, you're there the whole time. Yeah, you're there the whole time. You're listening the sound of it, and it's just so like it makes your skin crawl. It's making mine like goosebump up right now.
Yeah,
it's so fucking creepy.
Although the needles under the fingertips and the needles in the mouth and the needles in the eye are gnarly, I honestly get more grossed out by her sawing off his fucking foot.
Yeah. Well, and to the credit of the actress that plays Sami, like, she has this like, I don't know, like childlike look on her face when she's doing some of these things, where she's just like really excited to see what fucking happens as soon as she gets through the bone, like, and you're just like, this is fucked up, man. Like this. But dude, man, it's a hard movie to sit through.
But it's worth it.
It really is. It's a
because it does
creepy, creative movie.
It does play on that like aspect of how women are treated and are looked at sometimes as possessions, or how awful men can be. Yeah. Or I mean, and it can be flipped both ways, because it's not just men that do that, but traditionally it's men who will tell a woman, oh, you're the only one for me, and then the moment they fuck, they're out the door. Yeah. So it is some real life stuff in it, but yeah, dude, it is an extreme movie. It's obviously not the gnarliest movie I've ever seen, but for some people this might be a movie that they won't be able to finish.
Yeah, for some people this movie goes too fucking far. That's for sure.
I love it though. It's not a movie that I'm gonna watch all the time. I'm gonna watch it every couple years, but holy fuck, is it a wild ride?
To me, it's like I'll leave it here. But like it's one of those movies that as even a horror movie fan, it pushes my boundary.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You know, where it's like, can I make it through this? Can I watch this? Can I stomach this? And you know, that is sometimes like exactly what you need from a horror movie, is to make it like, you know, make it a gauntlet for you to get through as a
Good
viewer.
point.
You know, like testing yourself. And
Yeah,
you know, if you find it all disturbing, then you're at the end of it, you're still a fucking human. Okay.
Good.
That's
Good
great.
point.
Yeah.
Good point.
But yeah, it's just a great, creepy, terrible time, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, man.
So, last couple of shout outs. We got Stir of Echoes, which I feel like I need to rewatch. Stigmata comes out this year.
Oh, yeah.
We got a couple creature features. You know, we have Lake Placid, which is actually a pretty solid, for another one of those movies that this will be like my third time saying this, but has no right being as good as it is.
And that's another Miner movie, isn't it? Steve Miner's
that's what I mean.
attached to it. Yeah,
because of the director, because of some of the act. Kathy Bates plays a small role, but it's an awesome role. Or not Kathy Bates, but
there's Betty White's in it.
Betty White, Betty White. She plays the role of the lady that's like feeding the alligator, or the crocodile. I forget what it is. But Lake Placid's pretty solid, and so is Deep Blue Sea. It's definitely not in the league of Jaws, but Deep Blue Sea is entertaining.
Oh yeah, well, Deep Blue Sea has some classic moments. Sam Jackson getting eaten by the shark.
Absolutely.
A motherfucking. I mean, he doesn't say it in the movie, but Chappelle Show skit. A motherfucking shark ate me.
The shark ate me. This is how I talk.
This is just how I talk. Sam Jackson beer.
That scene is great, dude.
LL Cool J in it with his parrot homie.
I think that I think, and I could be wrong. I probably could definitely very much so be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that if he's not the first, he's one of the very few black characters in a horror movie that survived.
Yeah, dude, he makes it all the way to the end, baby.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie for sure. Smart sharks attacking you, and it's like movies like Deep Blue Sea are what ended up. And I'm not saying that these have like a great merit to them, but further down the line, the sci-fi channel shark attack movies, Sharknado, all these things, like
three-headed shark attack.
Yeah, they definitely took the idea of smart hyper intelligent shark or whatever, and pitting them against everybody. But it's a funny creature movie. What else?
It is. We have a Lou Diamond Phillips horror movie, which are always pretty bad, called Bats. And then we have a couple that I've never seen. We have The Killer Eye, which sounds interesting. And then we have let's see here, Camp Blood, which seems like a really vague title. It could be about anything. The Nameless, which I'm pretty sure is based off of a Lovecraft property. And then we have Troublesome Night 5 and 6 of 27 or whatever there was. So Jesus Christ,
they just keep on going.
I need to watch one of those, but I'm gonna get to my last, because we've kind of had some longer podcasts in the past, but we're kind of getting to the 2.5 hour mark. So my last pick in this 1999 movie that I mentioned earlier, how Scream was the most. That Scream was the most highest grossing slasher for the longest time, but the Blair Witch Project probably has easily has the craziest budget to box office in terms of making money, because the budget was like estimated between 200 and 500,000, and the box office was 248 million.
Yeah,
and
dude.
The Blair Witch, man, I feel like there's really not much we can't say about it, but just kind of in the same way of Cannibal Holocaust, it's this movie where it played into real life in the fact that so many people thought that this was a real thing that happened, to the point where the actors like stayed away from the media for a while. People actually thought these actors were dead. The promotional marketing that went into it, and just like I said, the small budget. Two friends that directed this with just 3 random actors they found through a casting call, and just went out in the woods for 8 days and made one of the most influential, creepy, original, unsettling, still talked about horror movies to this day.
Yeah, dude. Like that's the like. It really is. Like, it's still unsettling. It still gets you puts you right on the fucking edge of your seat. And it most certainly revitalized found footage films.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what I mean? Like, because they were like that like you mentioned, like there was definitely some trickles of like found footage-esque films in the past, but this like perfected it. It created a litany of other knockoffs, and it like it like revitalized interest in that style of movie making. Nobody has, in my opinion, made a better version of a found footage film since the
100% agree. 100% agree.
Yeah, it's such a fucking awesome, iconic goddamn movie, man.
Yeah, dude, just the small, what they were able to do with the small budget, with the amount of time they went filming. I just love how, like, the directors basically they came up with this, urban legend, this story that they came up with, this fictional legend, and pretty much everything, all the dialogue was improvised. They would fuck with the people that were the 3 cast members. They made them sign waivers saying, we're gonna fuck with your mind, and they did. And that's what makes the movie seem even more realistic. Like, you feel like you're watching something you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You feel like you're watching this real life horror experience unravel. Like, it feels so real.
And that ending,
oh my god, dude! It still gives me. I'm getting goosebumps again, man. This movie, like, it like just fucking what's Mike or whatever is. Yeah, it's Mike. There's only 4 people in the movie or whatever, but like when he, just him staring at the wall, like facing the wall, dude, and like not responding, and you're just like, oh my god, dude, something's fucking got him. Like,
it's so simple but so fucking disturbing.
It's so effective, man. Oh god, that's another one, man. I because it's one of those you watch so many times that then you feel like, man, maybe I don't think I need to watch it for a while. I haven't watched this movie in a few years.
It's been a while.
But I really it's one of those, as soon as I saw that you were going to bring it up, I was like, damn, dude, like, I need to watch this again just for the thrill of it. Because it really is, like, it's one of those rare movies that every single time I watch it, I've been spooked, Like, the energy of the movie gives you the fucking creeps, man. And I always hate movies centered in being lost in the woods, man.
Oh, my god, yeah.
Fucking nightmare. Absolute nightmare material, this movie.
And I think a part about it too is that, it's a lot more grounded in reality than a lot of horror movies, to where, something like this, some parts of it could probably happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just, another thing about it too is that, like I mentioned, it's just these 3 random people that were the actors. So it's not these trained actors, and they just do such a goddamn good job. And they just bring it, like I said, everything about it is just so authentic and so real. And I really don't think that there could be another movie made like this that would feel like this. Like, I just don't see it happening.
No, because like we've sort of said, like, I feel like I really think that Blair Witch hit the peak of what you can do with a found footage film. And
absolutely.
So from this movie, everything feels like it's trying to capture that energy, and so like it immediately gets compared to this pinnacle of found footage film, that is the Blair Witch. And like it definitely, like, other movies kind of there's like the one sequel that kind of tries to sort of it kind of pushes it further, but it just doesn't have even the same effect.
Not at all.
And there's all sorts of like random things that they did with this. Like I was reading that they did like it's like something like an 80-minute movie, and they did like they shot like over like 20 hours of footage out in the woods over 8 days and condensed it down. And I didn't realize this until just reading about it, but apparently the main actors just all used their real names in the movie.
Yep.
And I thought that was kind of interesting, actually, like, because that makes it play into the the realness all the more.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's true.
So cool. So
yeah, I haven't seen the most recent one, but I'd be interested in seeing it. Just and also another interesting thing is around the same time there was a movie that came out called The Last Broadcast, which was another like I've always wanted to watch it because it's another like it has a somewhat similar concept. It's a found footage movie about that has to do with the Pine Barrens, the New Jersey Devil.
The Jersey Devil.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, Blair Witch, man. Like, I don't think that what. Obviously, when they were going into this, I don't think they had any idea of how big of a impact this movie was going to have, and how significant it was going to be, and how loved it was going to be, and how it's like for years it was spoofed and referenced.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's shots of in any number of spoof movies, somebody like right in front of the camera, like,
yeah,
God.
And that scene is the first time you see it, it's creepy and it's effective and it feels real. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%, man. It's and like I think it's in terms of like I guess just like the last picks for the decade, really, like this it's such a good last pick because like this was the last like huge horror movie of the decade, and this propelled forward things that were happening in the early 2000s that we'll eventually start talking about. But it's oh my god, dude, this movie is just so, it'll forever live, dude. The Blair Witch Project is immortal, what I mean? Like,
I agree.
Damn, it's so cool. And I can't overstate it enough. Like, it's a forever movie, and it'll forever fucking terrify me.
Absolutely, 100%.
Well, I guess was there any final shout outs that you had?
I don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty clean through, but there's so much. I mean, like we talked about in the last pod. We'll wrap this one up since we're a little over. But the last pod we talked about how those years were kind of tough to get to find some picks. These last few years were so ripe with movies, man. My God.
Yeah, and we obviously we're not going to hit everything.
No.
So I apologize if we didn't mention something that we should have. But yeah, no, there was a lot of fruit to pick for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess on that note, this is us wrapping up the 1990s horror movies.
Yeah, we have an absolute juicy peach for the next episode. A movie.
Oh God, yes.
A movie
dude.
that I have been wanting to watch for a really long time, and I have been holding off watching it until I watch it for the podcast, and I can't fucking wait. So
I'll tell you.
That's all I'm gonna say.
I'll tell you what. I'm looking forward to watching it again. because it's so good. I jumped in ahead and watched it. I bit right into that juicy peach, and it's so fucking good. I cannot fucking wait to talk about this next movie, dude. Like
that's awesome.
To the point where I was done with it, I was immediately like, I just want to watch that again, dude. Like,
oh yeah,
it's a chef's kiss for our podcast for sure. I can't wait to talk about it.
I am so happy to hear that. All right.
Well, on that note, we'll leave it all there. I can't overstate it enough. Horror is such a fucking fun genre to appreciate. Mm-hmm. I just really hope that, for whoever is listening and whoever we reach with this, that like this inspires them to go back and reflect on some of these movies, you know?
Yeah.
Like
it's a good point.
It's really worth it. But, we always leave off with at least one final heads up. And I think that's usually you, Fitz. What do you tell? What?
Go watch horror. There's some good horror dropping this weekend. So, yeah.
You fucking know it, man. All right. Well, we'll see you on the next one, hot dogs.
Yes, we will.